They call to order the budget meeting for tonight on May 24th, 2023. Starting, we're right at 6 o'clock. All right. Do we do a roll call first, or do we put roll call?
Mayor Bennett, Councilor Harris, Councilor Stratus, Councilor Weathers, Councilor Murray, Committee Member Petrie,
Here.
Committee Member George,
Here.
Committee Member Lee. Lisa B. Wilson is absent.
And we play the lead. Like the leads.
To the flag, United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is select the budget committee chairperson, but I guess that's still me, right?
No, you're not off.
I'm not off the hook yet, right? All right, so moving right on to approval of the agenda. So a motion to approve the agenda? Do I need a motion? Do I need a motion? Awesome. Okay. Then do we need to read the minutes from last time? Or we do that?
The minutes are not available yet.
Okay. Okay. Any old business we want to talk about before we move on to?
No old business.
Okay. So new business is kind of a continuation of last week. Discussion of the recommended budget, the 2023-2024 recommended budget. Looking to try to approve this or talk a lot more about it tonight. I spent some time today on my employer's nickel, looking at a bunch of stuff. Thank goodness he's a good boss and he understands. But I didn't want to start. I mean, if you want to open up with questions or anything like that.
We just need Jeremy to go over this.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to spend the next 5 or 10 minutes or so just walking through changes since the last meeting. I'd like to start with the workbook that I used to calculate the water rates. I'd like to run through that quickly, just so that you understand the methodology behind that. And then I'll pivot to the actual budget numbers and focus on what's changed. So just bear with me for about 5 or 10 minutes or so. Okay. I want to start with the methodology behind the rates. I amended the memo for this meeting based on some changes to the rates that I originally sent out on Monday, and I want to talk about that. There were several components to how I calculated the rate, and to the best of my knowledge, the city has not gone through as detailed as an exercise as this. We've done a flat across the board increase without digging into the fixed cost of the water fund and the variable cost of the water fund, projecting consumption in the years ahead. That's what I've tried to do this year so we could have a more precise number. I started with the consumption forecast, and I took the total consumption each month since 2020 to come up with a forecast for, that's what this graph is, for the next budget year. So now that I have the $26.1 million figure, the question is, how much of that is the lower tier, below 5,000 gallons, and how much is going to get charged at the above 5,000 gallons? And to calculate that, whenever I first did this exercise, when I prepared the recommended budget, I used the annual consumption report. So it shows total gallons used for the year that I selected. Whenever staff and I met yesterday and reviewed this in preparation for tonight's meeting, we noticed something was off with the annual consumption report. It appeared that the report was not showing total gallons calculated per level. Instead, it appears that it was summing customers' gallons. And since most people use more than 5,000 gallons a year, putting that in the higher tier. So that gave me a wrong number. It was showing that 80% of consumption is charged at this higher rate, 20% at this lower rate. So you can see how that would affect the rate calculation. So we did some spot checking of monthly billing yesterday. And we came up with what I feel is I couldn't look at every month. I didn't have time. And we compared that to just running the monthly report. And it appears that when you just do the monthly report, that is correct. It shows the correct consumption, and that's what this is. So I did that for the highest month, and I did that for the lowest month. So for the July-August billing period, it showed that 52% was charged at the lower level, 47% at the higher level. For January, February, 69% at the lower level, 30% at the higher level. I averaged those to show that 61% of gallons would be charged at the lower, about 39% at the higher. They're not in the packet. So 61% at the lower, 39% at the higher. That then flowed into this worksheet where I have the total gallons. I have the lower consumption percent, the higher consumption percent, and there's the split in the gallons. I then calculated the proposed fixed costs. That's the salaries, that's the debt service, all the costs that we incur before we turn on to get the faucet. Figured out how much savings that we need to get to the $50,000 ending target. And that's the total fixed costs. I took our EDUs, equivalent dwelling units, divided the total fixed costs into the EDUs into the total fixed costs, and then I got the total fixed rate per month. I then totaled the variable costs, the costs that we incur to produce water. Here's our tier 1 consumption, the tier 2 consumption. I figured up what the rate needed to be so that we could recoup. And this is the current year's rate. This shows that we would have an $89,000 shortfall at the current year's. But I can calculate a precise number for the tier 1 and the tier 2 to equal this. So that's how I calculated the water rates. Any questions about this before I move on to the detail sheets? Yes.
Maybe you said it, the expenses you use this current year or projected for next year?
For next budget year.
Up top, the very top number where your look formula, whatever, the 291,845. Good. Go ahead and highlight. So you've got it looking at the budget, which is below. If you scroll down below, yeah, put in a little bit more. So software and technology, that $100,000. My question to you is that $100,000 the $70,000 that we need to buy this?
This is the total PLC, and this isn't calculated. This is left out of the rate calculation.
It is, okay.
It is. So if you see here, it's pointing to the pivot table. It shows benefits, interest payments, payroll taxes, principal, and wages.
Okay. All right. Good. Good to know. Okay. So they propose my theory of lower rate is really 202, 202, not 302, 202.
Correct,
I didn't dig deep enough in it.
correct. Any other questions about this workbook? Okay.
I would say I have some concerns about taking 2 of the 12 months and doing an average off that, but I think you're gonna come close, but I would say that, my guess is that there's 3 months out of the year where the water usage is higher than normal, and probably 7 to 9 that it's lower than normal. So in reality, you can't really just average highest and lowest, probably come up with a true figure, but it's a good average. It's a challenge.
With the time, we dug into this yesterday afternoon and we realized there was a problem, and I did the best I could with the time I had.
Well, you know what I'm saying too is, I still think it's a good effort, but it may not really be the true number of average usage, but I think it's a lot closer to where we were before.
Yes, and that is a good point, Tim.
And
I also think that if we raise the rates, that whole number's gonna fluctuate on the lower side. If people are gonna realize that if they don't use water, they don't pay for it, they're not gonna use it. So now we're really in trouble, because you're not gonna be able to accomplish getting enough money to do all the things that you wanna do.
Well, that's why I've dug into this and propose a flat rate to make sure we cover those fixed costs. Because you're right, usage will fluctuate, and what that means with less usage, there's less electricity, less chemical costs. And that means our variable rates don't need to capture as much of those costs.
We already see that in that. So, I know this may be early to introduce this, but why are we raising the sewer rates? Because the sewer looks like it's in really good shape. And it has plenty of money. And I have to tell you, my dad was on the school board when I was a kid. And in California, if you didn't use the money that was allocated for that year, then the next year you got less. And so the idea was to spend every damn dime you got so you wouldn't get less the next year, which seemed asinine to me even as a kid at that time when I knew about it. And I'm wondering why we just continue to up the rates when maybe we don't need to. And can we drop the sewer rate down to make the water rate more palatable?
Jeremy, unless they're linked, I don't think they are. And I don't want to speak for the community, but I think it might be better for us if we stick with the water rate discussion and finish that and then move to the sewer discussion. So that you don't have to keep bouncing around back and forth.
So whatever the budget committee decides.
The money is only being budgeted, it's not being spent. We have contingency money that's sent there each
But it
year,
says-
and we don't spend all of it.
I don't
So,
understand that, Don. I'm looking at what's in the bank.
I know, but we don't know how many leaks he's gonna have, how many of
I-
his motors are gonna go out. So we're planning for somewhere, not the worst case, not the best case. But you know, if we just went by the bills that came in, one time we'd have a 15% rate increase, next be 5 to 20 to 5. So we're trying to put a smooth thing that, okay.
I'm understanding that, but I think you've got quite a lot of money in the sewer. That you don't have to increase the rates just because you think something might be happening. If something really happens, then you go and get a loan and fix it.
We've got a new fund that's or a master plan that's coming up that's going to erase a lot of that. So.
Well,
that's, in my mind, that's a big gamble, because the problem with the water now is that we have things come up. We were okay up until about 19, and then we've had enough stuff come up unexpected that we found ourselves now, struggling. So I guess I'm just a little worried about you know, just assuming, I don't get any, know anybody else does, but we gotta be wise about this and not short ourselves. Yeah, maybe nothing will happen this year.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, if the Budget Committee wishes to reduce the sewer rate or to not have an increase, that would result in a revenue decrease of $54,000. So we're already at 99,000 ending fund balance. That would put ending sewer fund balance at about 45,000.
I don't understand.
We're not gonna collect the money.
Because we won't collect enough money to keep the ending balance. That's.
I want to go back to the rate calculation. But I'm just gonna go back for a minute, because on the water on page 30, so just so I'm clear, because I'm getting mixed up with all the iterations. So it says the fiscal year 23-24 proposed, the charges for service was almost $650,000. And then it says adopted, but what the next column is I think the revised proposed, right? Page 30 of 80. And then packet. Okay.
Okay.
So is that 650, was that the first iteration of the budget that we got?
The 560,000?
The 649.
So the 649 is correct, what you saw at your last meeting.
How was that calculated?
That was calculated based off of the previous data that I had that turned out to be incorrect.
How did you do it the year prior?
We just figured on a flat 5% increase.
And so we jumped from 468 to 650 from the previous budget to this year's budget, and that. I'm not sure why the 650 didn't raise eyebrows, how that got to us, that then makes it so complicated to understand and follow.
I don't want to speak for Jeremy, but wasn't part of the issue that we were trying to correct the negative fund balance, that we weren't taking in enough to cover our costs. So that 460 was not accurate from the get-go, and so the extreme jump was Jeremy's attempt to bring us back to a positive fund balance.
Well, the 460 was correct.
I thought the 460 was not correct. But we were
Well,
not
that's
covering
what the
all.
estimate is for this year versus the 460.
I believe it was somewhere in
It
the
was in
accounting.
ending balance, not the ending and then this year's beginning balance. It didn't have anything to do with revenue. Or it would have changed here, but we.
I don't follow. Could you?
Besides the jump between this year, or that particular year, 2022, and 2023, what we're doing now. You know, it stayed at a certain line and then there was a big jump, but it was, I think from my understanding, it was due to the accounting error that moved $40,000 the wrong
It
direction.
doesn't affect
But
the
it's
charges
zero
for
for now.
services line then.
Well, one other thing included in the charges of services when I created the first rate calculation was the payoff of the sewer operating loan. That was about $65,000.
That would affect the charges for service?
Yes, because the rates had to increase in order to pay off that operating loan within a year's time. I also believe that the PLC system was included in there with a complete cost recovery within the first year to be recouped through rates. So there was a lot of these big one-time things that were captured in the proposed budget that, based on our conversation last year, I've removed. Or last week, rather, our conversation last week.
The way I see that line. It's a plug.
That seems odd. And this is the biggest number we get.
Yeah, it feels, so this fund data here is
So we back into rates by,
that bingo. That's what I'm seeing. Because, you know, we gotta first start with requirements / expenses. Okay, that's why I asked for the year-to-date books, if you will. What are our actual expenses for the first 9 months? And then I did some dirty math to try to figure out or guesstimate, which is really what it is, what we're gonna look at for the end of the year, what, you know, June 30th, what will our estimate for our expenses actually be, and for 22-23. And after doing my, you know, divide by 9 times by 12 kind of thing, which is at this point in time, the best, really all you got to do. Yes, 1 month is not gonna get that, you know, next month is gonna get that amount, but, the numbers that I saw that I came up with versus the budget were not that far off. One thing, the debt service was off. I came up with 25,000 versus 58, and there was a reason for that because there was loans that weren't taken off or something.
There are some loan payments that need to be recorded in the water fund that were recorded in another fund, and that correction hasn't been made.
Okay.
So what you see budgeted as for the budget for the water fund is going to be what we actually spend for debt service.
Right, that's it. So, but then we've got a jump up to 75,875. Is that more, that's some debt coming in that we?
What that includes is $70,000 private loan, the first year's payment and interest. That's assuming a 5-year loan at 8% interest
70,000
for the PLC.
Let's see. Like I said, like materials and service, you know, 2021, 22 actual was 130. You budgeted 182. We're actually could possibly end up over 2. And then your budget for this upcoming year is 233, and with the economy where things are, I think that's reasonable. Capital outlay, that was another one number that I came up a little higher than the budget for 23. I'm coming up around 65 or so. And then the future budget 23-24, you're at 110. Is there something going on that?
That's the PLC system. So that's the PLC system plus $10,000 for any other water main or line repairs that might come up.
Okay. So like, where I'm going with this is your numbers aren't that bad, or not your numbers. I thought I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody.
Sure.
What I kind of double checked on, let's see, trying to understand what was going on. So the way I see it is we need to start with what our costs are, you know, historically, and what they could be in the future. So therefore, that's why I call the charges and service, the rate increase plug, because you know, you got a good guesstimate about instant revenue. We know that we need to buy this $70,000 piece of software. So that's going to be a loan that's going to, we're going to get. And then what's the 30 for? Transfers in?
I'm assuming that the PLC project is going to be $100,000. So based on the committee's feedback from last week, I have a $30,000 capital loan from the sewer fund. And then the rest of that would be a private fund or private loan.
And the capital has.
Right,
What you said.
right.
So that one,
Right, and the 70,000, where did we look at, is it gonna be over 3 years or 1 year? we're gonna pay 70?
I assumed a 5-year loan.
5 years.
that's 17.
Right. And I didn't factor in a first year's payment for the sewer capital loan.
Right, okay, all right, so. That being said. This resources / requirements is kind of like it's a funky thing, but it's a balance sheet. And a kind of, it's not really, it's a cash flow. So therefore the top needs to balance the bottom. So. How that happens is. The charges of services is our unknown, variable, flexible, what in the accounting world people call a plug. That's the number that I gotta make work to make all these other numbers that we're pretty sure about. The top part balances the bottom part. All right, so therefore now that number is tied to the rates.
Correct.
So on this spreadsheet here, you've done the math, the lookups and everything, and you're saying, okay, because we need to get to top amount matching the bottom, and by looking at your expense, because your lookup actually looks at the expenses, projected expenses,
Correct.
then that the 291, that's kind of your number that, okay, this, and then you added the 10, and so you got 302, and then you got your math. And so boom, that's where you get into 4261. It's just not quite for the year. So the 2 or 3 hours that I took to look at this today, you know, at first I'm like, you know, last week I'm like, I don't understand. Why is it so high? This and that. After getting more data and more information and taking the time to look at it, I see where this is coming from. So the numbers unfortunately make sense in a way. If our beginning numbers and our trust in the meter readings, our trust in and all this other stuff that starts and begins with is, you know, the flow, how much we're using, if all, assuming that all that is correct, then these numbers make sense. The problem that I'm having, and maybe some of the other members are having, is, yeah, it makes sense to get where we need to get for 22, 24, but it just ain't right. Put it on the citizens all in 1 year. And it's not their fault that there were errors and that there were things popped up. I don't know. I've never been in government. I was just 2 weeks ago. I said, it'd be kind of cool to be on the budget committee. So silly me, right? Yeah. So I've got to go back to my history of where I come from. And where I come from is a business world where I don't have customers. I don't have revenue. And who cares about the expenses because I can't pay them anyway. So I don't have a business. So treating the city of Lowell like a business, our customers are who? Citizens, right? So I can't see asking for a huge jump like that. I just don't see the rates. I think there needs to be. I think that even if we have to run in the red a couple of years to get to where we need to get, and also to give us time to really figure this crap out. What happened? Why? And how come we're finding mistakes? Oh, by the way, the accountant did this. Oh, by the way, my software did that. I just don't think that an increase in 1 year is.
Wow. Go ahead, Martin.
Well, and you touched on it there. I agree with everything you said, except the biggest problem is right on page 5 of Jeremy's initial thing is the problem is we haven't considered the impact of water consumption on the sales revenue. We're in this downward spiral. We don't know why water consumption is going down. There's no reason for that, and yet it's going down, and we're gonna price ourselves into another reduction. And so we can play this game all we want until we've priced ourselves out of the market. Although there will be a minimum level because we have to run some certain things, but that's the biggest unknown right now. We know what the costs are. You're right, that's a plug figure, but we keep dividing those same costs by a lower and lower number to spread it over, and we don't have an answer to it. And so this isn't big. If we fixed everything this year and jacked up rates 75%, we're gonna be sitting here next year doing the same thing. Because we still haven't resolved the issue about the water consumption, and I don't know if operations has any ideas about that. You know, like you said, you expected, you know, with the development and all that going up. I mean, we talked about that people have low flow and that sort of stuff, but there's still more of us. There's still more of us. And I told the schools, the school is our biggest customer, water customer. And I pulled their 3 top accounts for this previous current 12 months, and then the 12 months prior to that. It has gone up astronomically. And they're the over $5,000 rate. So if that's not covering the low flow and all of the new development, we're in serious trouble. There's like 875,000 gallons of usage there at the school. And I don't know what we're gonna do, because if you're gonna, on the chart, we're gonna suggest that the rate for the greater than 5,000 gallons is gonna go up 95%. The school's not gonna be able to afford that. They're a public agency just like we are, using tax money, and I'm worried that.
Can I speak to that real quick?
Yes.
One thing on the variable, maybe it takes a little bit of explanation. So for the school, for example, they don't hit the variable rate until 40,000 EDUs. I'm sorry, 40,000 gallons. So each EDU equivalent of 5, they're an 8. They have many meters, but we'll talk about the high school, for example. The high school has 8 EDUs, but they have a 2-inch meter. So they don't hit this variable rate until they hit 40,000 gallons. So their first 40,000 is charged at the lower rate, and then above that, you know, they're right at almost 40 every month. They're pretty close to that. I could speak for NBA and Lundy. Both of them have a leak. They've had a leak since November. I've notified them every month. We've tried to find it. They've tried to find it. But you're right. Their usage is way up. The Lundy meter that we changed was the original meter for 53. So we knew there was going to be an enormous jump in usage. And then as far as the decline, I explained this to Jeremy very early on in the budget meeting. One large factor of reducing water was sewer fund quit using city water for carrier water for motive of our chemicals. And it's a lot. It's 14 gallons a minute, 365 every day of the week, every day of the year, because the sewer fund can't afford an $8,000 water bill. You know, so we got the mechanism, we got the pumps fixed, we switched back to in-plant water where we reuse the water that we clean ourselves. And you can see it historically, we look through, you can see where we were using 300,000-400,000 gallons a month. That's a lot. Down to 10, 15,000 just for hosing down water. We actually do have a leak right now at the sewer plant. So the number once again does not look accurate, but it was huge. And it was, Jared was still here actually when we fixed it. And one of the things he says, well, I like that money coming to the water fund, you know, because it was, we were paying a water bill at the sewer plant that was, you know, higher than 2 of the schools. It was just astronomical. So that is one reason for the reduction. But we looked, I mean, it's just even with the new meters, there is a very steady, slow decline.
We're in an impossible hole. I mean, this isn't a one-time fix. It looked like it was last meeting that we, do the plug figure and divide it out and then that's gonna get us through this year, but I just, I'm worried for going forward. I mean, I don't. And it looks like we talked about that last year too, so it was the same message.
Well, that's why I so strongly recommend hiring a rate study consultant to help us have a solid financial and operating plan over the next 5 years.
What was the cost for that?
We estimate, staff and I estimate based on our professional judgment, about $30,000, 15 for the water, 15 for the sewer.
For that expensive.
But
Right.
part of the problem now is that all we've done for years is just bump it up 3%, 5%, with no understanding of what, is going on. And between that and extra things that have happened since 19, we finally hit the wall. We haven't kept up with our rates, obviously. So that's.
The usage though is what's driving.
Well, right, but I think it's a combination anyway.
Yeah, because I mean, if you have one user, if you have $5 rate, two units of 2.5, so 5. So there's a line, there's a, how do we get there? You, with that, I mean,
Well, I just,
you pass what you want to say.
that was mostly what I wanted to say. I just again want to be cautious that, this isn't a bunch of mistakes. It's over the years we have this. It's the situation. That's all I just want to be clear because.
I have to also say that, we're watching that graph and usage go down, there's going to be a turn. It's not going to be an exponential decrease to 0 at the end. That's not what we're looking at. There's going to be a terminal where there's a minimal amount of water usage occur. I mean, people will cut all they can. There's still going to be a minimal amount. We're not going to see that same decrease and constantly falling over. We might have already reached that point. People don't know. So I think that's looking at that in terms of being in business, we're not going to get there. People could choose to buy their Big Mac. They really, people need water, need water. There's some business aspects to it, but it's not like we're just see the customer base walk away at Bolton. Every citizen will walk away. I'm saying, so we need to temper our thoughts of that perpetual fall. And this isn't the stock market. It's not going to bottom out at 0. It's going to bottom out somewhere just probably below where we're looking at right now. We're probably pretty close to terminus on that already. But we might. So.
Well, not if we fix these leaks at the school. I'm serious. Yeah, the numbers are crazy. They're crazy high.
Yeah, just in my small water. It's crazy. But I just wanted to state that we're not looking at the end of 0.
No, that's
Right, I didn't mean like. So that being said, right, so we're gonna get to a point where we're like this.
Yeah.
So what do we, how do we get where they're lined up? And I just still have to go back to, and this is me not being here, doesn't mean me being on my 3rd meeting. I don't think that trying to do it all in one shot, with a huge increase is the way to go. think over a couple of years and ease that, and we are at that bottom number now, then, okay, then we have a better idea of what that rate needs to be or what it can sustain. You know, like I said, a budget's an estimate. But have we gone back and looked historically at it? So in 2019, our rate was this. Do the math, what should have the rate been? And do some comparison that way. So that's just my-
Jeremy, how would we pay for the budget? Somebody can come in and assess the next 5 years
That's included in the proposed budget,
for the water,
correct,
for both.
correct.
So
Where's
that's
that
something
number?
we can do right away. If we lower the sewer rates, then we still do it, or is that? The bottom line of the sewer rate, if we didn't raise the sewer rates, you're saying we would only end up at an imbalance of 20.
About 50,000. Correct.
So the risk of that is one thing comes up, it's major.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
Tell me again what our lead time is on this PLC, when you expect everything went.
Well, the original quote that we gave to council back when it was 30 days.
Where does that put that be like?
What it still hasn't been ordered. We're not even, we're in the process of selecting the
Integrator.
integrator record.
Rough, yeah.
Yeah, I would say January next year. But I will say that we're doing site visits, part of this RFQ. And the last person I met with has 2 complete systems on the shelf because they prepared for this and they ordered stuff during all the COVID rush. I'm not saying that's a perfect fit for us. I'm not saying it's gonna be the $70,000 PLC, but yes.
But there may be.
There, yeah, so if we prepare for 30 weeks, I still feel confident about that.
So to answer the previous question, the rate study consultant is in engineering services. That also includes our city engineer. So there's, let me look at the water fund, engineering services.
And that's in the
Yes, engineering services. So there's in the water fund, there's 15,000 for the rate study consultant, and the remainder of that is for any city engineering services that we might need.
Okay, so that suggestion proposal has already been covered. Has already been covered in your in the sorry. I don't mean the 23-24 budget
Correct.
expenses.
How does that tie in with the integrators work? How would that?
The integrator, the integrator might have their own system, or they could help us source a system. So they're going to be our consultant with everything having to do with the programmable logic controller and the SCADA.
Will that help with the rate study, or are those
No.
totally separate?
So they're separate.
They won't look at each other, talk to one another.
There might be
So
some.
we could start that tomorrow, well, whenever we could find somebody to do the rate study. Just not blaming anybody, I'll point the finger at me. We talked about this last year and we're in the same position. So I don't want to be here next year kicking myself again for why didn't we do that?
We did get quotes last year. And we just didn't have the money. I mean, they were pretty spendy. We sourced quotes from OEW, we helped small public water systems specifically. And that's where this number is coming from, this number that we put in the budget. We've talked about it for 5 years. I mean, we both former CAs talked about it, we talked about it. Yeah, I agree.
How do we pull the trigger on this?
But it,
Put it in the budget.
but
We're
it's
putting in the
specifically in
budget
the
so we can
budget.
start.
I agree.
Do it.
A line
How
item for
soon
it.
could we have that? Like, if we can, I don't know how fast we can hire somebody and how long it takes.
I've been through a rate study before, from the process of hiring one to completing it. It's like any professional service, we'll issue a request for qualifications, put that out there, interview people, sign a contract with somebody and get them started.
What are you expecting, what is he gonna tell you that we don't already know?
These rate study consultants are, that's what they do. They are extremely knowledgeable about the economics of rates. They're extremely knowledgeable on how these plants run. They can help us discover any efficiencies. They can help us figure out if there's a different way we need to restructure our rates so that it's more equitable. They can look at our trends on our expenses and our revenues and figure out things that I can't figure out. They will do comparisons to other jurisdictions to see where we stack up. They'll produce a very detailed report that analyzes our operations in depth. And they'll also look at our capital improvements program. And the result of that will, whenever you see it, it'll be a 5-year plan. It'll show the revenues, expenses, and then it'll show the rate needed to reach our goals.
We have to communicate with the public
Yes.
that we know what we're doing,
Yeah.
instead of saying every time that we gotta raise rates, because we don't know why our usage is going down and our expenses are going up. You know,
It would be
it's
simple.
tough. If
So
nothing
that
else.
we
I
aren't
mean,
here again.
So I'm ready to kick the can down the road till we find out what this dude says.
Well, but we gotta make the year work, Bill. We can't, we gotta come up with some kind of a
If we're
decision.
paying him out of this budget,
Yeah,
then we gotta make this budget.
yeah.
And just to let you guys know, when we call it, they take time. This is not a, taking the soliciting and everything out of it. The fastest one I ever heard of it was a rush. The guy spent that and that only, and it was a little bit over 3 weeks, and it was water fund only. 3 weeks. That was from the time that he got all the stuff, because there's tons of documentation. For the time that they got it, and then he still has to come to council for everything, but yeah. I asked him timeline, and it's about 90 days. That's if they solely give us their only attention. That's
I
one,
would estimate 6 to 9
that's
months.
one fund, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
When I look at this, when we go to the public, they're not gonna be happy. Even if we knock off $7, $8 for sewer, they're not gonna be happy. So we knock off $5 here, $5 there, still not happy. If we reach December and we see we're low on money, we're gonna go out there for another rate increase. They're gonna be not happy twice in the same year. And I don't know that, I just don't, I wouldn't feel comfortable, going too low, we can knock $1 off here, $1, which is really immaterial. But if we come back in January, do a supplemental budget and have to do a rate increase and say, okay, you went up so much this time, now you're gonna go up this much more. I tell you, they're not gonna be happy. That's my only thought.
Are you convinced that in January, we're gonna have to go for another rate increase?
If
Why are you so convinced?
if the money isn't there to finish the year, if we have expenses that this lower rates won't cover, and we have to go out and increase the rates to cover what expenses we're having and expenses we expect to have.
Ron, I see some of this increase is because we want to get to a magic goal, so we have a certain amount of money for contingencies in the water fund, the sewer fund, and all these funds in case something happens. What if it doesn't?
Well,
Then
that's
we're
been
not
that
gonna
way.
need the money.
Back when you were mayor, you had the same thing.
We've also already lowered.
That's-
contingency to 50%.
I went through this last year and I don't remember any of this kind of stuff.
It was there.
There was an increase, but it wasn't anywhere near.
Oh, no, it's not near this because we've had more expenses at a greater level. We have a highway up there or road.
When I was mayor, the word out was we could double the size of the city and not have to do anything.
And I asked that fellow over there about that, and he said, there's a if. If he made this improvement and that improvement,
That's business.
I know, but if the improvements were made, then we could have doubled the size. The improvements weren't made. So we're limited.
No, that is not what I understood when I was there. What we had done at that
I know,
time, we could double the size of the city
Exactly.
and we didn't have to do anything.
And I heard the same thing. I read the same thing. And what I did was all of a sudden we get the water plan back and we're almost at our upper limit. I said, well, no, we should have another 200 to 300 homes we could add. And the answer was, if we had made the improvements in the water plant and the sewer plant, we could have met that capacity. They never budgeted.
Maybe that's
those
the case,
expenses.
but that isn't what I heard.
I know, what you heard and what I heard was the same thing, that we had the kind of capacity.
Well,
Yeah,
and remember, we wouldn't have to do anything if everything just stayed perfect and we never had any issues come up and we didn't have inflation and.
But that's business. Things do come up. I know that. And I've been in business and it does come up and it's scary. It really is. But I never was able to say, well, I gotta build this fund up, so I gotta charge my customers more money so that I can have this glorious feeling that I've got enough money to cover whatever the hell happens. Because that just isn't how business is. And I think I'm looking at this and seeing where we have to meet this magical goals or we're gonna look like crap for the rest of the county or whatever. And I'm saying.
The only magical goal you could even say we're trying to meet is to have a $50,000 at the end of the year on the water fund. That's it. The rest of it is spent. We know what we're gonna spend.
So what if we don't have 50,000 in there?
Well, then if something happens,
Then we go out and make a loan and fix it.
well, yeah, Bill, we have to pay loans back.
I understand that.
And we don't
But-
always
but-
have
so are you gonna-
to pay that.
Then we know we got to pay the loan off, but we haven't reached that point just yet. And I'm just, we're not, there's no way we can dump this on our citizenry at this time. Maybe half or some of it, I mean, they understand an increase, but not, this much increase. It's gonna stop people from wanting to come to this town. And I think the success of this town is to have more people come here.
Bill, I'm
But-
not disagreeing with you. Like,
Okay,
this is not,
then we need to figure out a way where we can do
I
this.
mean, none of us want to do this. It's not that
Then,
we want.
then we shouldn't be doing it.
Well-
We should do.
But
half of it.
we have to do our due diligence. And I'm not saying there's not, I mean, maybe there's there's other ideas. I'm not closing the door. I'm just saying we have to do our due diligence to meet our responsibilities as the council to balance our budget and make sure that we have everything in order. And I think you all know that how many times we have sat around this table agony over rate increases and how we were gonna take care of our, everybody sitting here cares very much about that. And we're all gonna pay those rates, every one of us. So I just, I don't know. I think we're actually asking ourselves the question of what we're willing to do this year. In other words, are we willing to go to our citizenry and say, we hate it, but this is what has to happen? Or are we going to cut back and then be ready to take whatever comes? And like Don said, that could be to adjust the rates again in the middle of the year. So I mean, that's kind of a decision in my mind is which way is better, what's worse on our citizens?
Or we could go in and do half the rate, we tell them they're gonna have this big a rate in July, and we're gonna follow with this much rate in January, which is a down month, which is gonna be, it won't be as much on water, but it was 375 homes, I think, was what, you had when you were here, and then, and we're told that 780 would be the capacity. But like I say, now we find out it's more towards 600, and we're getting, you're talking about growth, but it's 600, we're getting pretty close to that. If it's, I don't know if it's 600.
I don't remember the number.
We're with probably less than 100 homes to be meeting capacity for the water and wastewater plant.
How many homes do we have?
Currently homes?
on the system is like 480, I
Well,
believe.
if we count equivalent dwelling units, we have 591
Okay.
Five hundred and 91 homes.
EDU.
EDUs equivalents, yeah, because the school counts, for 8 and.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Parks.
So we're close to,
Those
we're
are-
close to a point where we're gonna have to make a major money capital increase on some plant if we want to grow anymore. We got to put water towers up there, booster pumps. And the water, I mean, you're talking, we saw the plan, $10 million, if we want to do everything, continue to grow it, make this a bigger place. It may not be possible.
So then we have a moratorium, is that before?
Well, we talked
Do it
about
again.
that.
I have a question about presentation of rates, because it's kind of like apples and oranges. We got the water per EDU says the rate change is 51%, but that's a fixed. So the variable is per gallon. Per gallon per month, the
per 1,000.
per thousand per month, yeah, so. And I'm getting mixed up with what we have here, so I still don't have a very good sense of what we're asking the citizens to pay. Without, we can't send them this memo, I mean, we can't send this memo out and have somebody. I calculated my April bill based on what it is currently versus, the revised proposal, and it's 23% increase overall. So. But that's just mine, that's on 3,000 gallons.
Versus household paper.
And you're at 3,000, but I thought I saw something in there, the average is 8,000.
The average fee, the average, we sat down and did every utility customer yesterday, every single person. And the average is right about 4,000. There was people way lower.
Oh, okay.
We took businesses out, we took the school out and stuff like that. Yeah, but August, a lot of people irrigate or have garden stuff, and so August is by far the highest use, July, August, September, that's when it was 8,000.
Well, can't we do it for like a year instead of,
That's what we did,
okay, and what
We didn't
was
do-
the percentage increase overall, water and sewer as proposed?
percentage increase,
Yeah, what,
not on gallons, you're talking dollars, you're talking something about dollars, right?
yeah, I'm talking about a person's bill, when we're gonna go out to somebody.
Yeah, if you look at on this, if you look on the difference and the total and you divide that into the current rates, I believe most of those are going to be in the 23%. That's what it turns out to, 23%.
All told, can we display that some sort of way?
Actually, let me pull this up. I'll just do it on my.
While he's pulling it up, I'm just quickly.
That would be helpful, I think, to see. And I can
Cool
do that
checkers.
on mine.
You go to the-
Maybe we show people how to estimate what theirs might be, kind of like we're doing with Santa Fe. That's what I'm trying to get to.
We
What
can-
is your increase gonna be?
you know what we can do, we can
And
put,
what can you do about it?
we can put a calculator online, that's what Springfield Utility Board had, 'cause they did back-to-back rate increases. You can literally, everybody gets their bill, has access to it with your account number.
Or call here and we'll do it for you.
Yeah.
I think that would, because this is not gonna, nobody's gonna know what the hell's going on until,
Well, that would be
August
the
when they
next,
get their
yeah,
July bill.
if we do, regardless, whether we lower it or, we need to be able to explain.
yeah, and then,
What we're doing,
so
and why, there's no
I-
doubt. No doubt about that.
because right now, I don't know what I tell somebody. I'd say your water rates are gonna go up.
Well, I mean, yeah, we can say, well, this is what happened, and this and this and this, but that kind
That-
of doesn't. Yeah,
I like the Santa Fe approach.
Yeah.
Here's what your situation is, here's what you can expect, and here's what you can do about it. There's some things they're not gonna be able to do a thing about, because water is a different commodity than garbage, but. It's not hard to do, but, I couldn't find that anywhere in here because it is so variable from customer.
Well, I guess I'm not even seeing if we split it in a year, like we started lower now and then added again. That's not a whole year, so that's not gonna meet our need.
I'm.
And I don't know that I wanna do it to them twice. I don't know.
Something,
Said it before, Michael.
Formula's not working on it.
Something bad, do it all
Yeah, I mean,
oh, I know what happens.
yeah.
Trying to be nice. Build it up.
Let's see. I know what happened.
Trying to be nice.
But leaving.
About maybe complete. That was not going.
Oh, you made that adjustment.
No, and I do.
Bad state of life to be doing well.
I bottled water. I know. Control your expenses by bottled water.
So the sewer remains constant no matter how much water the people are.
Correct, correct.
So,
So there's that 23%, so that's what I said, yeah. 4,000 gallons.
Bill, what's one thing I'm not digging too deep into, one thing with the rate study is they'll look at that. You know, a lot of other cities, municipalities have a base rate for sewer and a variable, so if you use more water than your neighbor, then you pay more for sewer because you're paying to treat it. They take out summertime, they don't count irrigation, but you got a family of two that lives in one house, right? Let's say they always use 3,000 gallons. And next door, you got a family of 8, say they use 6,000 gallons, you know, it's for laundry, you know, it's not, this, we're talking January. So that person would pay more for sewer because they're using more water and more sewers need to be treated. This is the first place I've ever worked that has flat fees, ever.
then can that be changed?
That's something that, when we do the rate analysis, that's the first thing they look at. And the guy I got a quote from just had North City switch. But yeah, Springfield does that, you know, you have a base rate and then variable. So it's the exact same way. So the people who use the most water and treated water, I'm not talking about irrigation or washing cars, pay the most sewer. And that's, you know, and that makes the bill for the people who are single person by themselves, you know, not paying the same as a house that has 12 people. And that's something we'll look at. Hopefully with.
It's something I thought from this way, can we reduce the sewer rates? We automatically have to raise them along with the water rates. I mean, I know we're not gonna come up with a magic fund amount that we think we should have in there, but I'm ready to take a shot at taking a chance on it. I think it's time to really look at what's going on and see where we can cut back.
Cut back on what?
On everything.
What do you mean?
It's sad because you in this case, the water rate and the sewer rate, they're pretty much the same. I mean, that's what we sell, is water and just the disposal of waste. Decent way to say it, where you know, we have a street fund and we have a water fund or a light fund and a park fund and all that kind of stuff. And I guess are we pulling money out of the income that comes into the water department and the sewer department to supplement these other, where do we get the money for the street fund?
The street fund has its own dedicated funding source.
From where?
State highway taxes.
Because that doesn't enter into our budget at all.
It's in here, but it's just in the street fund.
But it's appropriate to the street funds.
It comes from the.
It's the same way with the water fund, if we borrow from the sewer fund.
So we have a person out there to send the money into it. Taxpayers, I guess.
The state government.
The same way with the water and sewer fund, we borrow from it, We would have to send it back, same with the street fund, and those other funds that they borrow from the other side.
I do.
I don't think you can do
Yeah,
that.
well,
Not with the street
You
fund.
couldn't do that.
Bill,
with street
the
fund.
only money that leaves the water and sewer fund that goes into another fund, period, is franchise fees.
Just
Franchise fee for the general fund, that's it. All water fund stays in the water fund, all sewer fund stays in the sewer fund.
okay, so these are the only two funds we can titillate as it is. Then we need to figure out how to do that. And, so we dropped the sewer fund $10 from 61, whatever it is now.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, based on the committee's feedback from last week, I did include a transfer from the sewer fund into the water fund as a capital loan for the PLC system. So I did take that into account. That is the 30,000, and I'm assuming that would, first payment on that would be in 24-25. So that's not reflected in this budget. It's not reflected in these rates. So I did take that into account. As I mentioned earlier, if the sewer fund rates stay the same, that would bring the sewer fund balance down to about $50,000, and that would result in an annual savings to the average residential customer of about $93 per year.
For a year.
Say that again.
Okay, so if the sewer fund rates stay flat, that will result in a revenue shortfall that will bring the sewer fund balance down to about 50,000. That will also result in an annual savings to a residential customer of $93 per year.
Pretty healthy. That's at least something.
One and a half things, yeah.
And what was the increase we were gonna do on the? What
If you held it at the
What
current
was-
rate,
was the increase that we were gonna put on them this year from the sewer?
$7.71 increase, $7.71 per month.
Okay, so,
that thing was 23 to 16%. That's sizable. I mean, when you're talking about a percentage increase and people are looking at what they're getting, but
I don't disagree, just remember that means water and sewer only have 50,000 a year if we don't have a thing happen.
And
well, there's prepared budgeted. I mean, not,
Well, yes, but I mean.
it's not like we're
something
going down to
unexpected.
zero.
No, but I mean. it's
What's
something-
the unexpected? Oh, sorry, you.
if there's an unexpected cost and we did that money, we find ourselves in a spot where we're trying to bring that back up on next year's rate increases, we'll also have to bake in the rate increase to cover the loan for the water fund, which is not included in this. So we already have a rate increase, no matter what, that we have to budget for in our minds for next year. And if we dip into that contingency fund, I'm worried there's been issues that will have something come up, and then we'll have to deal with that as well. But my only,
That's
my
all
only
I'm saying,
hesitation
too.
on not baking in that rate increase.
I'm not saying anything's gonna happen. The same could, if we're talking about the sewer plant, and the water plant, and they're over and stuff happens. I'm not disagreeing, I'm not saying we shouldn't, I'm just reminding us of what the decisions we're making.
So. If my truck breaks down, I need to find money to if something breaks, we can find, it's nice to have that, you know, that sitting there. But, you know, like Bill's been saying all along, we're doomsdaying it, and we're like, okay, what if this happened? What if that happened? That's great. I don't know, can somebody explain why we have $307,923 in the bank on the water SDC fund and we can't touch it?
Because the state law, for
Where
one,
did we get that? State?
those are from system development charges.
That's up charge.
And Jeremy explained that in his, that was in his memo. He talked about it.
When you build a new house, you
Can't
pay
touch them.
a lump sum of money, water, sewer, street, farms,
Okay, and what is that money to be used
for improvements. to pay for it.
Capacity.
Capacity improvement. Okay, isn't this
No.
software an improvement?
It's a repair.
It's a repair.
Yeah, we tried to go through SD. We tried everything. Yeah, we did, that's the
Yeah.
first place we like.
Yeah.
But because we're putting more houses.
But that goes into the SDC fund that doesn't apply today. It's
Yeah,
only on.
capacity
use.
would be a water main extension, a new reservoir, a new process at the water plant.
And-
Expanding capacity,
Right.
what we can produce, only capacity that we can make available.
And
is
that
what you
doesn't
can
help
use
our
SDC
budget.
for.
It's just money sitting there being wasted.
Well,
We just worked on a water master plan and we do have projects on the book. Lots of them, so that money.
Okay, so that money is to work.
Look at your hopes out.
Works.
300.
Yeah, works it.
10 million.
I have a question for Jeremy. You applied for a $60,000 grant through the county. When will you might hear about that?
That was through Representative Conrad's office, and I haven't heard anything about it. I'm not very hopeful on that.
Have you checked or?
I haven't checked. I haven't
Okay.
checked. Sure.
Max, how many times since you've been head of the public works department, have you seen the breakdown in necessitated expenditure of $25,000?
25,001. One, and everybody knows about it, November. Okay, so the most liability obviously runs in the water plant, sewer plant. You know, when something goes wrong, I'm not talking about the treatment plant, but in the system, not catastrophic like it was in.
How often have we seen an emergency expenditure of 10K?
Five or six times.
Most times you've seen 10K or more in 1 year.
No, never, twice, twice, I've seen it twice.
So we've seen a $20,000 expenditure in one fiscal year. We've seen a $25,000 more expenditure within a fiscal year for emergency repairs on our waters.
Oh, just water only?
In the plant,
Yeah, so take
You
this,
talk
so
about that.
one time,
in the ground,
one time.
the infrastructure, leaks and stuff.
Yeah.
It goes way on that.
On that chain of questioning, I know everyone knows this, but we keep bringing up that how we run a business. My only gentle pushback is that this A isn't a business. B, we're talking about a utility, not a product that we're selling for a profit. And C, I think of this contingency as responsible governance. We know we have an agent system. You know, we can use history as a guide of what problems we can anticipate. But we also have to take into account how old the system, how old the pipes are. There is a level of responsibility we need to, as council and committee members, go to the public and say, we did our best to anticipate these problems and fund them with contingent funds, so that we don't have to go to the market and take private loans at high interest.
The only thing your question is to answer, we do budget $20,000 a year on repairs specifically for outside of treatment. But, we can look at historical data, but, you know, the years we don't have anything, and there's been years, 38,000. But as we continue to get older and the system expands, it seems like I'm coming to council every couple months, you know, like, oh, well, here's an $8,000 emergency bill. Yeah, we try to budget for, you know, none of this stuff that our budget is planned, obviously. You get a call in the middle of the night, you know, and it's all hands on deck, you know, the cost is what it is. We can't sit there and negotiate with somebody. We've done a lot of repairs in house. Staff is hard. We just did one, I just showed here, we did one yesterday, did a service in bus stop. We did a repair in house without an outside contract, you know.
Yeah, that's been huge.
It's huge. And that's worth a lot, tens of thousands.
Well, the reason why I asked about just the overall percentage is because when we look at these 51%, 23%, 95%, that's inflammatory. I mean, to a person that's reading it, and it's not appropriate, it's not accurate, and we'd be vilified, as we should, if we're throwing numbers around that we can't explain. So that's why I was asking for the, I'll call it the Santa pack way, just, you know, how is this gonna affect me? Because it is different and people I know get that, you know, so just like we can have different size cans and we do have some choice, you know, you do have some choice about your costs. You might not run into town every day, you know, when gas goes up. You know, that people do have some control over their lives and so where's our, is 25% too much? Is that, I mean, that's what we're saying we need. I don't know what that is overall, because again, it's hard to calculate on averages when we've got such a swing between the school and everybody else. But, what's the level of sensitivity here? I think that's what we need to be talking about, you know? We raised it 5% last year, but that was 5% on a rate. That's not 5% on a person's bill, and that's where the message gets messy. I think we need a clear message, and the message needs to be based on something we think we can live with, that'll do our due diligence, our responsibility, and not sink folks just because we want to be safe. I agree with that. We can't be putting money into savings account on the backs of people that might make them sink, you know. With our level of sensitivity.
As I look at this graph, it says less than 5,000 gallons of a certain figure, then greater than 5,000. So if you go to 5,001 gallons, are you charged for another 5,000 gallons?
It's per thousand.
So you're showing a difference here of $6.78 on what is it, 5,000 gallons is $7.13, or now it's $13.91 for a total 5,000.
Bill, if you had $6,000 increase, the first 5,000 would be $1.29 per thousand.
Okay,
So $1.29 times 5.
all right.
And then for the next 1,000, you'd add another, I'm sorry, $6.95. Then the next $1,000 or 1,000 gallons would be $13.91
Per 1,000 gallons.
for that 1,000 gallons. Yes, so you take $6.95 times 5 plus 1 times $13.91.
Okay, so the first 5,000 gallons is
$6.95
$6.95.
times 5.
Per
Oh,
thousand,
okay.
per thousand.
Okay. It doesn't just,
Right, that's why this is confusing, because this is not anything that the public would be able to
confused. Very confusing.
figure out. That's why it's real simple when I go to my own bill, you know, and that's, I think, what we need to do. I like the online thing, you know.
Jeremy, can you talk to the low income assistance program? Because I don't know if everyone really knows that exists, and that not everyone is going to realize all of these costs.
You want me to elaborate on that?
What the program does.
We have two sources of assistance for utility bills in the city. The first one is through Lane County Social Services. They will offer a one-time payment to people who meet their eligibility criteria, a one-time payment per year to help them get caught up on their bill or to pay an emergency bill. We've had payments up to $1,000 to help people out. So that's one option that people can sign up for. Another option is the city has its own public utility assistance program. And that will give somebody who meets the income eligibility guidelines a 25% discount on their bill. And that runs the whole year. It's not just a one-time thing. So they'll get a continuous 25% discount.
You put that in.
you hear on the news out there that there are a lot of people that have less than $600 saved for an emergency. And most people live just paycheck to paycheck, and any kind of an increase is a very serious problem. And they have to decide one way or the other, food or rent or water, or, and
Yeah, that's two, so
Well,
you
I-
said there's 4. Hang
when I
on,
first got involved with this, cannot.
What are the other?
No, there's just two. There's just two.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just two.
So Bill, I hate to say this, but does not analogy just transfer over to the city as well?
Well, it probably does. But, one of the problems as I see it is we're not allowed to run this like a business. We're only allowed to do what the state lets us. And so they put these parameters on us and Katie bar the door if we don't live up to it. And what I'm saying is how serious is that if we don't live up to it? And the auditor comes in and says, wow, you're relying on this fund. What happens?
Well,
I mean, if, as long as we're paying the bills and we don't have this contingency, what do they say to it?
I'm gonna be very clear. I'm not gonna do anything that would create a negative audit finding. If I'm directed by this council to do so, I will refuse,
yeah,
period.
when you're talking.
We won't get an interest rate or borrow money from it, if we're not, if
Yeah,
we're out of
I mean,
compliance.
as a former federal employee, I mean, public money is very, very regulated, and whoever is responsible for it will be held liable personally. Not just do we want to have the integral in cities, but we would never want to put Jeremy in that position because that's who we would put in that position.
State law deputizes any taxpayer in the city to sue me personally in my personal capacity if I willfully misspend city money or use it for purposes other than what law
Yeah, but
requires.
you put it in your file.
No.
No,
all you have to do is misappropriate or spend it outside of what the law says you can do.
Doesn't even have to be the game.
No, it doesn't have to be for gain at all. It's just about doing it wrong.
And then the city has to defend it, so then we get the. But that's not enough.
And we would never do that, Jeremy.
No, we're not gonna do that.
I think the way I was looking at it was the doomsday thing of, oh God, what if we get a $50,000 bill? And we have $30,000 of money. Where do we get the 20? And did we do a due diligence with the government, with the funds of the state or whatever? You know, by trying to keep you out of trouble, but I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I mean, I don't know if something's gonna happen next year, it's gonna be a $50,000 or $70,000 hit. You know, today we're like, okay, we're gonna raise this amount of money, it's gonna hurt, yes. But it's gonna balance our budget to where we have $50,000 extra. Okay, but what if we get a $70,000 hit? Here we go. What if, the words what if? Crystal ball. So, but if it happens, how can we be in trouble? And we said that we misappropriated if it was a situation that we couldn't foresee.
Those are two different things.
Okay.
Talking about whether we have a contingency. We're talking about if we took
We will pull.
willfully
We're
took
not gonna do what they tell us.
took SCDs and put it in the water budget and spent it that way,
Right.
when the law says that we cannot do that. And that also makes Jeremy, as a city administrator, personally liable. I mean, he's the one that, you know, would be in trouble. And so that having a
Right, but-
contingency versus, you know, taking
Right.
other funds out of other places, that's two different.
But so how would how would this proverbial shit hit the fan if we had something that happened that we couldn't foresee and we needed an extra $20,000? How would that be doomsdayable
Well,
by the feeling that I'm getting?
we're talking two different things now.
Right,
I think
I'm not talking about,
So not having a contingency would be on us, it's just on us.
And I don't describe it as doomsday, I describe it as, you know, is it more expensive for the city to plan in advance for a contingency fund or to count on going to market for an interest rate loan?
Yeah,
And since we're speculating, I will not be shocked if this rate analyst comes back and says that our contingency fund is insufficient.
yeah.
Like, I am shocked that we don't have a more robust contingency fund for utility. We're not talking about the parks, we're not talking about streets, we're talking about a utility that everyone on.
Which, by the way, is our main duty in this city. Am I right, Jeremy? I mean, our
Water and
main
sewer, you
Go
go.
ahead.
is our water and sewer. That is our main issue. Everything else is important, but you know,
So hypothetically. We do all this and we hit our 50K mark. And nothing happens. We don't spend the 50K. When we, and then 2 years goes down and nothing happens, would that double to 100K?
If you keep the rate, if you keep the rates the same?
Yeah.
It wouldn't because I don't know. That's why we need a rate
So
consultant.
I'm carrying through the hypothetical after that.
Costs go up.
it costs would go up.
Electricity.
But we're gonna budget those in as fixed in known costs in future budget. This is.
Oh, I see. Well, but
Okay,
if you kept the rates the same next year and our expenses go up, we wouldn't have to.
45.
okay.
Yeah.
So. We have to come to a number here. We need to come to a decision. We can't, and it sounds like there's a clear division between going with what the proposed rates are and going with a much lower rate, even cutting the sewer rates below what they are currently. I would say that a fair middle ground would be to say, okay, we already went from 100K to 50K. We already did that
On the water.
on the water.
Yes.
And I think that's really where the numbers are at here, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where our focus should be. The sewer rate, 11.48, yeah, that's a shitty increase, but it's not a crazy increase. It's double, by normal, 3 to 5%. So could we say that, yeah, we still want to hit that 50K number, that's still our goal. But could we go and come to an agreement, because that's what we really need. We can run this thing to the bitter end on the two ends of the spectrum. It sounds to me like maybe we need to look for a middle ground, have that goal of 50K, but maybe we need to slow play it. And if I'm not incorrect, Jared, right now, we already have 40K in.
We have, that's been included in all the expenses and everything. So the rates are.
We have 40K in the water.
We started off with that.
Yeah, we were
40 to
39
23.
something.
We started off with that. The estimated budget has ending balance in the 20.
And the end of the 30 grand for the extra.
Yeah, so it's less, but we still have a balance in there. That at this point,
Well, today we have a balance, but I thought that balance was included in the budget. That's what changed us from lowering these slightly, because that was more than we thought of. So you can't take it out, you know.
it's,
You can't count on it.
that was just a secondary part of what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I really feel that as a committee, we need to come to a decision on this, and we need to have a majority in that decision. So I think we really need to start looking at making proposals to this about where we want to go and see how the town.
I don't know if I can do this or not, but I mean, is there any, going on what you're saying, is there any wiggle room? Are we at one extreme to another? I mean, I would like to see the number lowered a little bit, not always. But I would just like to see it be a little less of a hit. Who else feels that way, or am I the only one?
Well, I mean, it all feels that way.
I don't know who feels what, but, you know, I see the 2-tier, and I know it would hurt the guy on the higher tier, but could we have under 3,000, 3 to 5,000, and That way the lower increase would have a smaller, or lower usage have a smaller increase, than medium, than larger. I hate to start y'all
Well,
over.
we're gonna send this, we're gonna kick this can down the road more weeks if we start.
If we do
We already,
that,
I realize that,
it change the whole
I
process.
just went to my head.
Well, but we always have the ability to do that. This is just a recommendation to the council. We still have time. We can't put a gun to our head and have it final. We don't have to have final decision.
No.
It'd be nice if we could. It would be great.
Like I say, I'm sympathetic to the ones that only want it, that don't have the room.
It doesn't have to be done.
But we need to have something by July.
Yeah, we need something.
Well, I guess I'm wondering why we picking them. What's gonna change?
I was saying, Bill, he was asking.
He was
for
just,
data.
if there's just a recalculation done, that's all I'm
A
talking
three
about.
tier
Oh,
versus
Oh.
two tier.
Tim's suggestion.
And if you actually got yourself a guy committed, you to talk to us about these rates. How soon would that information come out?
About 6 to 9 months
6 to
after
9
we
months?
hire
I
them.
work for this.
So-
Next spring.
So can we scrape along until we get that? In other words, I see an increase here, but do we have to
If
go this heavy?
If a water rates or if there's not any adjustment in water rates, we need to find about $90,000 in cuts to the water fund.
Okay, I'm not saying no, but I'm wondering if we need to go this heavy until we really understand where we're at. And then we've got some real hard evidence as to, we are up against the wall. We've done everything we know how to do. We paid $30,000 and brought a guy in that really understands this, and he's saying, you guys are cruising for a bruising if you don't do this. And we have stuff we can tell the public and make them understand where the hell we are at. But just going and say,
But Bill, if we wait 6 to 9 months, we will not have enough money to make it continue.
but we do have money coming in every month, right?
More
Not
money going
enough.
out.
Well, how much not enough?
Well, I think that's what Jeremy, that's what he's laid out.
It appears to me that,
Well, divide 90 by 12, Bill, that's how much not enough if you don't raise the rate.
90,000, we don't have that many things we can fund.
wait a minute, I missed something. You have a $90,000 expenditure you're looking at right now?
Without, if
Operating
we
cost
don't
per year
do
with no rate.
any increases in the
Your
rates,
operating costs are gonna raise how much? Percentage wise? Do you know?
I don't have that number.
Then where is this coming from? How come we know that we're gonna have that much of an increase in operating costs over the next 9 months?
Fixed and variable rates, the fixed costs. I think we've gone over that.
They've
If
That's
it's
all.
fixed cost, then.
I'd like to let Jimmy have the floor for a minute. He's been very patient, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that this committee accept the proposed rates.
I have a motion on the floor for the committee to accept the proposed rates.
I second it.
Okay, and a second, all in favor? say
No,
aye.
you asked for further discussion.
Oh, further discussion,
They didn't
I'm
show
sorry.
you the
I
thing earlier, because those are.
I didn't hear one further discussion.
Yeah.
But I think further discussion. Okay, sounds like we're ready for the vote.
Well, no,
Are we?
I still would like to know what percentage increase we're making though, because,
I have no idea.
I mean, I know what mine's gonna be. But I don't know what y'all's are gonna be, and I don't know what we're gonna say we voted on, except that we're gonna adopt these rates, but. Because I'm thinking, sorry, what just said that there's a 25% discount in income eligibility. So a person, like myself, that would get a 23% rate increase could technically maybe get that offset, which would be a good thing for the year.
But we would never know that. We don't know the income levels of our community and we don't set that as a policy.
No, I'm just saying that that's additional information, but. But all I know is mine. I don't know if overall everybody's is 40 to, 10 to 60. I don't know that, and
Again, that's a usage thing, which we don't control as a matter of policy. I think the proposed rates that we're voting on in history. Right,
It's the 40, yeah, what I understand, it's the proposed rate of 42.61 on fixed. The $695 per thousand on tier 1 and $13.91 tier 2.
And if you look at the bottom, Jeremy pointed out that 4,000 gallons per month would be a total bill of $145.28, and that would be a $27.29 increase.
Thankfully provided.
And that was the average you guys came up
That was just the average,
and that's the 20.
and that's at
3%
4,000
increase.
gallons.
with. So we can say an average increase of, whatever.
Per household, it's an average increase of 23 to 32%.
There you go. So there's the percentages. And the total is the amount that goes up, right?
Correct.
Total.
For this gallons per month.
Don't tell me again if we held the sewer at the existing rate, or you said it would save. I said it.
$93.
93
A year.
per year.
And that brought it down from like 25 to 15.
16.
Well,
15%.
That's not like for water, you have like 250, almost $300 a year. What's 29 times? I'm gonna count that.
327.
How much?
327.
So we're asking. There's a potential increase per year for. For
For an average household.
Of that much money.
Correct.
If they keep consumption.
Um. It isn't. I think everyone in this room can afford it. But not everybody can, but. I think. I don't know how the hell we got here. I think going forward. With this consultant. We'll know. And we'll be better educated. Moving forward and be able to speak to that to citizens. But I think. I don't know,
I think,
I don't have, it's nothing against anybody here, I have faith in the numbers. Where the numbers are coming from, but,
if you said you did your own.
yeah, I did,
You did.
yeah, using the numbers that were. But we, okay, so I'm done with my political discussion, Maureen, but still. Any more further discussion?
I was just gonna say mechanically, I don't understand that we can call the question and not, we just keep discussing it. From a Robert's rule of order standpoint. Once the question has been called, then the discussion is on the process of calling the question.
Calling the question is a separate motion. Every motion gets a chance for discussion before you vote. We're done with the discussion.
What, okay. Gotta clarify what I'm trying to do. Are the motion is to propose rates only, not the budget.
Just
The motion was to accept or to approve the rates as reflected in the city administrator's memo.
And that's really the core of the whole discussion last
Right,
year.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
only thing not on the budget.
So this is what we're looking at on page 6. All right,
Yeah,
so we're at, this is, the vote is to approve or not to approve page 6, is that right?
If page,
Proposed rates,
page 6 is the pro,
the proposed rates, right here, that's what we're approving or not.
So page 6 is actually the other. one.
Yeah.
Page 3.
Page 3 is memo.
Oh, sorry, 3 of 6, that's because it's 3 of 6, that's what he meant.
You're looking at the old, the total budget. This one, right?
This is one.
Where'd it go, Bill? You hit it from yourself. Here, you have mine.
Well, no,
It's this one right here.
got so many
You do.
things kind of changing every day.
You do. So 3 of 6 in the current package that was sent out.
This one here, is that it?
No.
So
That's 3 of 5.
So
That's
mechanically,
the-
if we pass this, what we're doing is you're updating that figure on page 6. If the numbers don't match between your memo. I recommend.
actually, it's going to show up.
Brought one with you and then.
Yeah, it's the updated one,
All I have is not.
Oh, that's, yeah. The old one had that.
and it's a little bit lower on this.
There you go, right there.
That's updated,
That's the updated.
proposed rates, that middle.
Yeah,
You got it.
but he had the,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there was a question about where if approved, the updated rates would be reflected. And that would be on page, in the appendix A4. That is the draft rate resolution. If you look at the draft rate resolution, it has these new rates.
Gotta help me. So I got the package yet to
At the very end, A4.
Oh, I'm at A10. Okay.
that's the-
Okay, resolution to establish more rates and effective. Okay, so that's.
So what the committee is, or the motion before the committee is to essentially approve as a concept this resolution. It will ultimately go to the city council, but the committee is just voting on recommending to forward this resolution onto the city council for final approval.
Which means, Jeremy, if something happens between now and then, we came up with another really good idea.
Same thing.
Yes.
This is a good memo.
Yeah, so. Yeah, so we
It's the
should
same.
pull it. So understand that.
This was to help.
That's what you meant, Maureen, by it's not the final. Sorry, I was not. I forgot about that part of it.
New information, you can add.
Yes,
I mean,
and obviously, just so you all know, it would be. Everything. So it's like- Okay, so.
Okay, sure. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No.
Yeah, I am opposed.
Yeah.
So I think we need to do a roll call. or something.
Yeah.
Sure. Mayor Bennett?
Aye.
Mayor Bennett, aye. Counselor Harris?
Aye.
Counselor Harris, aye. Counselor Stratus? Counselor Stratus, aye. Counselor Weathers? Counselor Weathers, aye. Counselor Murray? Counselor Murray, aye. Committee Member Petrie? Committee Member Petrie, no. Committee Member George? Committee Member George, no. Based on the local government budget law, which requires a vote of a majority of the membership, majority being 5, the motion passes.
I think the city council should probably look at, discussion on expanding the parameters of the assistance program. Not sure what that looks like exactly, but making sure that we're capturing, because we basically kind of nullified that assistance program today. And I'd like to think that we're still, trying to reach out to the. So I would hopefully engage, bring on the bit of a discussion. 25% increase nullifies the 25%. So, yeah, so I will be, hopefully we can get on the agenda, this discussion about the parameters of eligibility guidelines.
I also would hope that we look at not raising the rates on the sewer. So we find out what's going on. As a council. Every little bit helps.
Like Councilor Stratus was saying, if we foresee that there's gonna be a good size increase, I still consider the 3-tier where we eliminate those people from having to make the administrative weight on the city. I don't know how long it would be or anything like that, but to save the city administrative time and effort, somehow get just go there first. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if you're able to, but that would be the consideration. I realize it's going to weigh heavier on people with larger income, but I'm sensitive to the people that on the low end.
We are.
So city, administrator. Have we, so by voting on the rates and not necessarily on the budget as a whole, what is the responsibility of the budget committees from here on out tonight? Or do we need to vote on the budget?
Yes, that is the key task before the committee tonight. And it is critical for the committee to approve a total budget number. And I have a recommended motion here.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget for the city of Lowell, Oregon, amount of $4,118,382. $4,118,382, of which $283,627 is unappropriated. Second.
Okay, the first and second on the motion, further discussion? Further discussion?
I need to ask one question, and this because I'm a little nervous about it. Is all this money in the same bank?
It is.
Is that?
Well, let me qualify that. Much of our cash is in the local government investment pool. So, like the fund balances for the SDC with our cash management, whenever we receive a big chunk of property taxes, we put what we don't need for cash flow in the LGIP pool, but everything else is in our.
Is it more than 250,000 at every time? In other words, what I'm asking is, if that bank went down, and it's not, or maybe it's guaranteed by FTC or FTC, whatever it is, you'd only get 250,000. Is that something that we should be worried about? We are in troubled times, and things could start happening, and all of this worry would be down the river if our cash went along with it. And I'm wondering if that is the case, do you have the authority to take these funds and put them in different banks? And so that if it does happen, the city doesn't lose their bank account.
That is a great point. The answer to your first question is we do have over that amount in our checking account. As to the other question, I don't know that.
Do you need that much money in the checking account? And what are bank fees? What are they charging you for? Checks? And I have banks.
In the budget.
And they don't charge me a dime unless I go and buy more checks to write. I get charged for that. Every other bank fee is null and void. I don't get any other charges. And I'm wondering why the city gets charged if they have that much money, in banks. You know, what are those funds?
I don't know. I would need to look into that. I don't,
I would,
Debit and credit transaction.
huh?
It's the,
Credit card.
when you use the electronic payment, there's a fee associated with it. And that's
So the banking fee is a credit card.
debit, credit.
Yeah.
Well, and the school district has got even another one because we got mail checks stolen out of the street post office box, so they had a positive pay system that stops, that we have to look at it every day and
So
forward it. And that
why,
costs something.
why do you get charged for using your credit card?
It's a
That's a company you're buying.
It's a business.
No, from the customer's bill, from the customers, not for the city to use our credit card.
So that becomes a banking charge?
There's a processing fee. So when you pay with your credit card at City Hall, the bank charges the fee to process that payment.
Right,
That's what you're seeing.
but who are you buying it?
Well, it's the.
Or are you talking about if people pay their water bill with credit?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, just the fee to bank.
We're not assuming with the, okay. That's it. I've been told not to call it a business anymore, so.
It's like, we don't keep over 250 in the checking accounts, we move it, we sweep it to the LGIP.
The LGIP, payment.
It's higher interest than the local bank, that's why, it's sweet.
How about Apple Bank?
Okay, so we're still on the further,
Yeah.
the further discussion, is there any further discussion? Yeah, great concern, great question, but now we're at the point in time where we call for the vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Not all the votes, you're back up there.
yeah, sorry. Yeah.
let me share this on.
So, I'll probably read it, huh?
Yeah.
Really good. Oh, yeah, I don't know. You can- So, all four votes, we have a motion and a second for, to approve the fiscal year 2023 budget for the city of Lowell, Oregon, in the amount of $4,118,382, of which $283,627 is unappropriated and reserved. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no. No. You want to call for another roll?
Mayor Bennett,
Here.
I thought that.
No, I didn't.
Well, let's not start over.
I said,
I didn't hear it.
I think I was on.
Mayor Bennett, aye. Councilor Harris,
Aye.
Councilor Harris, aye. Councilor Stratus, Councilor Stratus, aye. Councilor Murray, Councilor Murray, aye. Councilor Weathers, Councilor Weathers, aye. Committee Member Petrie,
No.
Committee Member Petrie, no. Committee Member George,
So,
Committee Member George, no.
So, four as far as it goes, we still majority.
Correct.
Okay, so the motion passes. Any other business? Business, move to adjourn at 7:54.